With the reported eventual closing of the PS3, PSP, and PS Vita online stores comes the unwarranted desire to get some games. It doesn't help that the online store closing is looming on all our collective heads. Not to mention Sony, who hasn't disclosed any plans for their soon-to-be disappearing catalog. I don't want to come off as an alarmist, but so far it's looking rather bleak. So this got me thinking about the PS1 classics. For those who don't know, the PS1 classics are games previously released on the PS1 that can be downloaded from the PlayStation Store for your PS3, PSP, and PS Vita. It's not a perfect list of games, but what we have is really good and rather impressive. And I really like this solely on the fact that it's a legit alternative option for owning PS1 games. The games are sold for a reasonable price, which is a huge contrast to prices on the grey market. And let's be real here, not everyone has the time or money to deal with the latter. So in lieu of all of this, here are my game recommendations before Sony effectively Thanos snaps the online stores. So just a heads up, before I proceed with the list, the games I'll be bringing up are from the Hong Kong PlayStation Store. My primary reason is that my account is registered there, but my other reason is that I feel like we aren't as well represented compared to the North American or European stores. I could be wrong about this, but this is how I see it. I'm also using this as an excuse to bring up some notable Japanese-only titles because there are some games which can be easily picked up despite the language barrier. Another thing to take note of is that I made these lists using the PS Vita store. I've heard that the PS3, PSP, and Vita share the same store items in their respective regions, but don't quote me on that. There might be a few exceptions, and I'm sorry if I mention a game that doesn't exist on your side. Lastly, I have the list in the description for those who want to have the complete list and don't want to scrub the entire video just to see the game titles. I made 3 lists with all of their items arranged in alphabetical order. I believe this will make it easier for people to skim through the list. The first list is the honorable mentions. These are games which are only offered in Japanese, yet I believe they are worth bringing up. Now, despite saying that, I can't confidently recommend them because of the language barrier. Most of the games on the list are story heavy, or at least I have the impression that you'd appreciate the game more and have an easier time with it if you know the language. Also, some of the games on this list, like the Arc the Lad trilogy or Brave Fencer Musashiden, have North American and or European counterparts. So even though I'm not outright telling you to buy these games, you can at least view this as a bunch of games to look out for in the grey market, or alternatively something to sail the 7 seas for. I would like to mention a few more comments. For starters, Atelier Elie and Marie Plus PS2 version has an English fan translation patch, so you might want to check that out instead. For the Namco collection of games, I would suggest checking which of these has the games that you want and buy that specific collection instead. They're kinda expensive, especially if you decide to buy all of them. And lastly, Popolocrois has an English version on the PSP, so you might want to look for that instead. The next list is the recommended Japanese games. These are the titles that I can safely recommend you purchase despite the language barrier. These games are easy to pick up and play, and they don't require an understanding of Japanese to enjoy, but obviously it would help if you do know some. Some of the games here are also notorious for being expensive or rare games to import, especially with the current world situation in mind. You'd be saving yourself a pretty penny by picking these games here instead. The most notorious examples of expensive imports in my opinion would be the shoot-em-ups. Games like Cotton Original Donpachi and Dodonpachi as examples. I would also like to specially mention EOS Edge of Sky High, which I believe is considered one of the expensive and hard to find games for the PS1. Klonoa was a hard choice for me to put in this list. I was considering putting it in the honorable mention because it has a story that's worth getting into, but from the gameplay alone it is easy to pick up, so I put it here instead. For the Intelligent Cube games, I haven't really played them yet, so I don't know the difference between the two. My safest assumption would be to pick IQ Intelligent Cube, since that is considered the base game between the two. And lastly, I believe the Rockman games are part of the Rockman Complete Works, which is a series of ports of the first 6 Rockman games for the PS1. And this really puzzles me because they're only offering up to the 5th game. I wonder why 6 isn't here. The last list is, you guessed it, the recommended English games. Obviously, they're all in English and easily playable. I would highly suggest you consider getting any of the games here solely on the fact that they are cheaper than trying to scour the grey market for official physical copies. The best examples of which are the JRPGs, and trust me, there are a lot of them here. Not just that, but there are also popular titles here, names that when you hear, scream Sony PlayStation like Medieval or Resident Evil. There's honestly no bad choice on this list aside from intentionally gimping yourself by not buying the sequels. By that point, I honestly think you shot yourself in the foot. Alternatively, you can use this list as games to sing sea shanties about, whichever floats your boat. And that's all of them. I apologize if I didn't go in depth or explain the reasons why each game on the list should be a considered purchase. A lot of the games here are, well, classics as they're called. And I wanted this video to be a recommendation video, no more no less. It didn't need to be super long, and I'd rather discuss the games in detail by themselves via my game reviews or retrospective format. But what do you guys think? Do you agree with my recommendations? Did I miss a game? Or maybe you just didn't like the video? Feel free to give your thoughts in the comments section. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey there, if you like what you saw, then please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. I want to reach 100 subs before we reach the second half of the year, and we're so close, so please help me out on that. You can follow me on Twitter at KenAthomos, and I also have a Ko-fi page if you want to follow or support me there. Links are in the description. Take care!